So, good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of our daily catch up with CryptoAM and anyone else who wants to join really, where we have a Zoom call each day where we talk about what's going on with COVID-19, what lockdowns are in place, what restrictions are in place, what's happening with governments, what's happening with businesses, and so on. It's usually quite a varied mixture of people who join us from around the world, sometimes just from the UK. We shall see who turns up today.
Hello.
Hey, Lubna, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm all right. Thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining us.
Thank- Um, my pleasure.
Yeah.
You kidding me? Thanks
Where,
for putting this together. What?
cool. Where did you find out about the event, about the session? Where did you find out about today's catch up?
Where did I find out about today's catch-up?
Yes.
An invitation?
Okay. I run various WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups and that, and I'm always interested as to which one has been most effective at getting people to come along.
Oh, I can't say that I can tell you for sure which ones we have in common, but if it's probably one of the crypto WhatsApp groups, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Are you in any of the crypto
well,
AM?
honestly, I'm not really sure, but I mean, at the time that I accepted it, I think you did it for a week or something.
Yep, that's right.
A few sessions. I think that today would be the last one.
No, so what I'm trying to do is I've actually been running these for a couple of weeks. And what I
Mhm.
try to do is find out what's a suitable time for everybody.
Mm.
So I think I ran
Field
it.
testing.
I ran it for 1 week at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and this week I've been running it at 2 o'clock. So I'm just trying to find out what's a good time for everybody, and then I'll keep running it each day, each week for now, as it helps keep everybody in touch with each other.
And what's the format?
So it's totally open. We get a variable number of people who join in. It can be anything between just a one-to-one like we have right now, or we may have like 8 people, 10 people, even 12 people. There's no fixed agenda. We have a real mix of people joining us. Sometimes we have people dialing in from Hong Kong, from New York, from Singapore, um, quite often from London. London's very, very popular, obviously, with the whole crypto movement. And it's just a general open chat about where people are, how they're finding things with the virus, with the lockdown, any news that they may have to share, anything of interest, really. So how about yourself? Whereabouts are you based?
Are you recording? This is recorded, I think, right?
Yeah, but if there's anything that you want me to not include, I can always edit
Oh
it
no,
out
no,
after.
quite transparent. Although my camera isn't on, maybe,
Yeah.
but or maybe it is, and I'm not looking at it.
So
But yeah, so I'm in Brighton, luckily for me. So
in
I
wh-
know
in where? Sorry, Brighton. Did you say?
Brighton Beach. Hello, if I open the window past the sound of the cars, you can hear the seagulls. So I should not be, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude that I was able to relocate to here when the lockdown became imminent.
Okay.
I couldn't just um, be locked down in the city now, could I?
Yeah, sure. I know some people who are locked down in. I think it's someone in Bali and someone in St. Lucia. And I think if you're going to be locked down anywhere, then that's probably a good place to be.
Have another friend of mine in Bali. Like that doesn't stink.
Okay. Yeah.
On a resort. Hello. I mean, like,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I can't complain because I don't know about you, but I think uh, like all nature, Brighton has something magical
mhm.
about it.
I love the back streets in Brighton, the little alleyways and everything that you can walk along with the cafes and that kind of thing. It's got a really good culture there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and it's still like it's still the UK, which is in this case a good thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Are you able to keep working from where you are at the moment then?
but well, beside the distractions of the beautiful nature, I have no problem working
Hey,
here.
hello. I can see you now.
I'm used to working from home. I'm an independent. I mean, I'm a C-level for hire, so to speak. Usually, an advisor
Okay.
to these days. I mean, for earning money, I usually advise CEOs of, I guess,
You,
medium-sized companies, public and or private,
okay.
and then a whole lot of startups and the likes. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I have my own activities.
Okay. That
And,
sounds good. We've just been joined by Fernando. Good afternoon, Fernando.
hi.
Hey, hello. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hello, Fernando. How are you? Where are
Hey,
you
good.
calling from?
Sorry?
Where are you calling from? Dialing
London.
in.
London.
Oh, yes.
You?
Fernando never sleeps. No, I say that because he and I are on various WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups, and I'm usually I'm a late owl. I do my best work at night, and quite often I'm working away. And then at like 1:30 in the morning, there are messages coming out from Fernando still. It's like, do you never
Yeah,
maybe it's
that's
you on
that's the
investment.
time. That's the time I stopped working and before going to bed.
Yeah,
I dumped my thoughts.
that's a good one. Hey, Anthony, good of you to join us today. How are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, Ant.
Hey, Fernando. Hello. How you doing, JT?
Yo.
Haven't talked to you for a while, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. We're
Yeah.
busy. We're busy. Everyone's busy working behind the scenes.
Yeah. But,
It seems interesting at the moment talking to everybody that everyone seems to be in one of two phases, which is either that they're really, really quiet with nothing happening and they're still kind of like in the shock phase of figuring out what's happening, and the others, the ones who are scrabbling like mad to get things done and everything. So nice that you're in the latter section.
Wow.
Yeah,
I,
lots going on at the moment. We've been quite lucky with business within Tata Consultancy Services, so lots going on.
what kind of consultancy?
Tata Consultancy Services.
Oh, Tata.
I work as a blockchain strategy consultant for them, and have done so for a couple of years.
Oh, that's lovely. And you're in the UK?
Yes. Currently in Reading with my wife upstairs in the office, so I'm relegated to the sofa. Not too bad.
There's some silver lining here and there. We get to meet in when we wouldn't have not been able to meet before. This lockdown, and we get to discover ways and make connections that are new. And I'm thinking, I imagine the few of us who end up on these circles are active in super busy, hopefully, well, some of us are paid to be busy, and some of us are super busy creating a new economy and a new place for people to hopefully land when we're out of the something to emerge out of this lockdown and incubation period of a new mindset.
I think you're right with that. I know one of the first sessions of these that I ran a couple of weeks ago, where I had no idea who would dial in or anything. We only had, but similar to today, in fact, I think there was 4 of us on the call. But it was really interesting because one was a lady from the UK who was trying to ramp up medical supplies provisioning and needed contacts with manufacturers somewhere. Someone else on the call was out in Hong Kong, and he's got great contacts with Apple distribution and Apple manufacturing. And it's fantastic, just this random conversation like we're having now, where all of a sudden the two of them were able to connect with each other. And then suddenly there was someone from Bristol, I think, and they had some connections in this space. It's like, how did that kind of thing happen? You know, we just pulled together a random meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a live demonstration of a decentralized, distributed marketplace and base and phenomena also that have been made possible by the hyperconnectivity that we have, but we've not, it required such arriving at a zero velocity for societies across the planet in synchronicity. The first time we've done anything in beat to the same beat. So hey, yeah.
And what do you think about the UK not closing its airports? Because there's another article today that came out. Is like people are coming as tourists to the UK still. Can you believe it?
No,
Wow.
that's not true, is it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a necessary evil, I think, in my mind.
What is it only true?
It's
only to travel back to to repatriate.
No. UK has completely open airports. Anybody can arrive.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
I think it's only selected countries that they
they open
flights down for.
They didn't lock down for any country at all.
But they're still having to operate some flights anyway. I mean, I bumped into one of my friends down at Sainsbury's a few days ago, and I was having a chat with him and saying how are things going, and he's an airline pilot. And I was saying, so I presume you're not doing any flying at the moment. He said, no. He said, I got back from Los Angeles this morning, I think it was. He said at LA, he said, the airplane's empty. He said, but we're still carrying cargo. And there's maybe a few passengers on board, but the cargo still needs transporting around the world. And this is something, everyone's looking at things like Flight Radar 24, and they're saying, look at all these airplanes still. If you notice what's going on, it's all the pure play passenger carriers. So the EasyJets, the Ryanairs, that kind of thing, they're all putting their aircraft, put them into kind of like storage and lockdown and that, and they're cancelling their flights. But the scheduled flights that are going on, which have also got scheduled cargo on them, they're continuing to operate. And so if you've got a passenger plane and you can buy a ticket on it, then in theory you can still go. But yeah, so someone shared to the group earlier on that news item about holiday makers still coming to the UK. I think it was on holiday.
Yeah, it was a border force. The one person that won't stay anonymous, obviously. With Priti Patel in the Home Office, no good idea to come public and tell things. But he came out and he said it's a small number, but it just shows that people. Just think about this: if people come from New York or any of those infected hubs, and we're trying to actually get people locked at home to stop the virus from spreading, as the virus is dying out, we get new people infected coming. So we will never be able to beat this, ever. I don't think we will.
But we're probably, it's about, in the UK, my guess would be about 30% of people have been infected now. Yeah, we're probably ramping up. It's just like, it's the whole idea of this lockdown is to slow the spread as much as possible.
Yeah,
but you're never going to be able to stop it. All you can do is slow it. So in some ways, I think that's exactly what's happening, that things are slowing down. And this is where it's going to be interesting in 3-4 weeks' time when they review the lockdown process again, of whether they decide to continue to extend it or whether they begin easing down. I think the session I listened to yesterday, or I watched yesterday, they were beginning to talk about the possibility of having a graded return in some way, where certain types of shops or businesses are allowed to operate and open, that kind of thing. So we'll see. I think we're still in uncharted waters, and it's going to be a couple more weeks yet before we really understand, in the UK in particular, just where we're up to. Yeah. But with your connections now, obviously you've got a large volume of offshore delivery people. Are you having many conversations with them at the moment about what's going on?
Yeah, we're all in really the same position. So India is also on lockdown, US even more so. There are elements that we're worried about in India with the spreading of the virus, but we've told all our staff and all our Indian developers just to stay home, and we've set them all up with laptops and access to the network. What we are finding is that many countries are in lockdown phase at the moment. So I was wanted in Europe for a project, but we're just going to have to deliver that virtually now. So and when the restrictions ease, then we can kind of start travel again. It's only the most essential travel that is signed off at the executive level within the organization. So no one's traveling, but we're coping. We're still very lucky. 1 second.
At the back.
I know. Can you hear that?
Yeah, the lovely background music. Is it somewhere over the rainbow?
You've got it linked to the Bluetooth down here. You've just played a beautiful soliloquy on my Zoom.
Excellent. And this has been recorded. It'll go onto YouTube. Everyone gets to hear.
It will.
I'll tell you. You'll be world famous.
The other day, I linked my my mobile to the Bluetooth speaker that you just heard, and whilst my wife was doing the cooking, I went, "I love you so much," and this kind of came blaring out and scared the Jesus out of her. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
This is where
crazy things that happen on Zoom, hey guys. Yeah, put it on YouTube.
Exactly. In fact, it's funny talking about Zoom and that, because I've just produced a video on how to secure Zoom sessions, but I hadn't included on it what happens when you start hooking in Bluetooth to things as well.
So my wife upstairs linked to Bluetooth, start playing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Steve.
Great.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
thanks for joining us.
Oh my God, Steve has emerged. I thought you're dead, mate.
No. Focusing on other things.
God, are you safe?
Yeah, very safe.
Fantastic.
Where are you now, Steve? Steve, where are you now?
I'm in Europe. We'll leave it there. I'm in hiding.
You ran away from Poland, right?
I'm at the safe house, guys.
I was never in Poland, mate. I'm just in Europe somewhere.
I thought you were
hiding
there.
away.
Why won't you? What's the secrecy? How exciting.
The secrecy is I work in the world of crypto. I have a best-selling book, and I just can't afford to have scammers, spammers, or any types of evil creatures attacking me and my family. So I just do things to keep us safe. That's all.
What do you do in crypto, Steve?
Well, I was doing a lot of advisory work and consulting for projects up until most of it stopped. I've also got a book which is published, which I have a copy of here, called Be Left Behind, which is on Amazon, Google, Barnes & Noble, etc., which I spent about 2 years writing, which was more of like an introductory book for people who don't know anything about it. I stopped mining.
Are you a maximalist?
No, I mean, I think I've become more of a Bitcoin maximalist recently, but I've always believed there's room for more than one thing in life. So I got into crypto back in 2016 when I left the fintech world. So it's just, I still do consulting for non-crypto projects, but it's just a lot harder for all of it now.
So how are you finding things for yourself, Steve? You're still managing to keep pretty busy in the crypto world at the moment?
No, I mean, work-wise, everything's dried up. So I'm baking bread. I'm doing homeschooling. Trying to help my wife keep the house clean, walk the dogs.
Wow, you're on holiday.
Yeah, if you call mopping and cleaning holiday, then sure, and baking bread, but I have a different idea of holidays.
So, someone shared with me a couple of days ago a Minion video, and it was a Minion video on teachers laughing at parents doing homeschooling.
Oh yeah,
So
they should be laughing at us.
Yeah, exactly. It was just so funny. It's so true.
Yeah, it's not my thing. I mean, I like educating, but with children, it's different because you really have to find a way to get them to sit still and pay attention and not lose your patience with them. And that's a very, very different mindset to be in. So I'm learning a lot from my kids.
I do feel sorry for the parents that still have, well, they're lucky to still have jobs and be able to work from home. And then they've got 3 kids running around as well. You know, that must be maddening. But
well, my wife still has her job.
Yeah,
my wife's still working, albeit with half the income. But I've sort of become Mr. Mom because I have to do more of that stuff just to keep things running.
Now you know how tough it is.
You know how valuable that is?
2 kids and 4 dogs, so we have our hands full.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look,
So
no, you trying to say something?
I want to bring a subject for you guys. I'm trying to struggle with how we can get out of this, you know, and go back to normal life because of what happened in Japan. Japan is now a second wave, and they think it's because of another strain of the virus that is actually attacking more young people, and not less of the older people. So I don't think strategies that governments have in place at the moment will be able to deal with this, because I truly believe that the only 2 countries that came up with strategies that are in total control at the moment is China and Singapore, because they closed the borders. You arrive in the airport in China, for example, you go to an area. If you're resident, they'll take you to your home. You're locked at home 2 weeks. If you are non-resident, you will go to an area where you get the swab tests, and if you're okay, they'll let you go your own way.
It's funny you say that, JT, because I mean, actually, I just got off the phone with a friend of mine in Singapore, and I think he would give you a very contrarian point of view, that things are accelerating there, and it's not as under control. Yeah, they had 481 new cases today. So I think, and it's 30 degrees, so it's not temperature based like people said in the early stages, which is what you and I argued a long time ago. This is a much bigger problem. Taiwan, I might argue, is probably got under more control than China. I wouldn't say China has it under control. They've just done a very good job with the media of lying to us. Let's be real. I mean, how can they only have 3,000 deaths and everybody else has so many more? It doesn't make sense.
Steve, I agree with you on that. Reporting is different, but what I mean is putting things in that are making sure that they will be in control, or they are in control. Of course, they lie about statistics. Take that to one side.
Sure.
Yeah. If you don't close your borders to stop people coming from the infection hubs and coming new strains, you're going to have a second wave. So I don't know how we can open the UK back to business because you allow people to coming back with new strains. Yeah, I just don't know the way out.
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's going on with South Korea? Because that was the exemplar of doing things right. The way they were doing surveillance, they were doing tracking, they were doing monitoring, they were doing testing. I wonder if they've got the right kind of model in some way.
Didn't they say they're having a whole bunch of resurgence of like cases of
that
people who
bad tests
having secondary cases? What's that?
Bad tests that they did. So they're testing people twice with 2 different testing kits now when you are out, you know?
It's discretionary over there.
Yeah, it is.
But they have a lot of testing, but going to the office is discretionary. You can decide if you know, so it's up to the company. But
what do you think? What do you think would be the right strategy to get out of this?
So I'll offer something.
To be a bit of a strategist, and I know you. What do you think about this? What would be the right?
With some of the research that we've done, it all comes down to how easy it is going to be for the medical profession to cope with the peak and the demand. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the likes of Sweden can cope with that, and so therefore they've relaxed their isolation techniques. Different governments are going to have different ways of dealing with this. Yes, we need a lot of tests. Yes, there's a few tests, you know, whether you have antibodies or whether you're currently infected. And it's just a case of getting these tests out in a proportion. And and then taking those numbers and reflecting them purposefully. I don't think, because there's been so little tests, you can't rely on any numbers. And then you layer into the fact of politics and saving face and not wanting to be at the top of the death pile, for want of a better phrase. So you've got politics coming into that as well. I think where we get to, and I think it's borne out in some scientific papers about herd immunity, but you've got to be incredibly careful of how to get there. And I can see maybe some schools opening gradually, some key businesses where maybe the staff have already had COVID and they think they're over it. And it might kind of boil down to the fact that we've all got to prove we have antibodies at the end of the day before this pandemic resides. But we're going to see ebbs and flows, and we're going to see that, you know, these indicators are always a lagging indicator. And so we're going to have to manage what we perceive to be 2 weeks ahead, and gradually open up parts of the economy to keep, you know, that infection rate stable, and so that the NHS can cope with it. And different, of course, governments are going to have different medical facilities and how much they can cope with it. I really feel sorry for America and India at the moment.
Yeah, Fernando, I think to address your question about the kind of strategies the UK can adopt, I think the starting point, completely agree with Ant, that, you know, we only have lagging indicators. But what we can do is we can look at what other countries are doing, and we can see what impact that is having, and we can let those countries be the first movers in this space. And this is where it's really good with the likes of Sweden adopting a different strategy, because it means we can then see how much of a difference that makes, and we'll be able to compare Sweden's strategy with, say, Bahrain and how they're completely locking down and they've got bracelets on people tracking them and everything. Give that a few weeks to see what impact that has on the caseload, what happens with the infections and the deaths and so on, and then use others as pathfinders for what's the best way forwards. But I think the British way of taking things slowly and cautiously may actually pay off this time around. Guys and gals, sorry, conscious we're about to head off to 2:30, and I only have the session booked for 30 minutes. Does anyone have any quick things they'd like to say before we close off for today?
Yeah, I think actually the way we get out of this has to be on a global collaboration. It has to be, there are aspects of it that are on the technology level. There are much of it is on the trust level, that personal thing, and the technologies that do it. It's about a mindset shift. It's about acceptance of our economic models and all the systems that we have laid down and have followed. So, well, for whatever reasons, whether we sat at the top of the mountain or the bottom of the valley of haves and have-nots, and we need to be able to share knowledge collaboratively and respect our privacy and make a shift for what really matters. And it's not about accumulating, it's about what we create. So we need to move from fear to kindness and that sort of a mindset. Hope we get to chat again sometimes, because I think we are in a very powerful place right now. And it's for us to make it, to emerge as we, and this is it's like we're back in the incubation, the formative years of a human, you know, those first 7 years, coming out of this months of being home, isolated and self-imprisoned, and whether we emerge liberated and united with kindness and compassion for each other and forgiveness for ourselves, or we emerge with an electronic leash that I talked about in the alternate some years ago. And we just
sorry.
Power. I thank you so much for the time. I'm sorry
for Gary, you could just mute them. Just mute everybody and then raise our hands to talk.
Yeah, that might be an alternative way. I try to run these sessions like I run the crypto WhatsApp groups, that I try not to over moderate, but occasionally I do step in. Robert, you've timed it perfectly to join us just as we're closing for the day, so I hope everything's okay with you as well.
Yeah.
Folks,
Be
folks,
kind, everyone. I'm
yeah,
off.
yeah, thank you all for joining. As always, sign
Nice
off.
to meet you, Anthony.
Wash your hands. Have a good weekend, you all, folks. Bye now.
Stay
Ciao.
safe.
See ya.